Too many meetings have caused our workday to increase in length by 8.2%. Since the start of COVID, we've attended 13% more meetings. I'm Emilio from the YAC team, and I want to talk to you about how to manage too many meetings. Let's check it out. So here's why conducting too many meetings can be completely destructive to productivity. We all know that feeling of being completely locked into the zone, focused on your task, you're tearing through it, only to be interrupted by an upcoming meeting. Just knowing a meeting is coming is a surefire way to lose concentration in whatever it is you're trying to focus on. In fact, research even shows that it can take up to 25 minutes to reconcentrate on whatever it is to get back into that deep flow state on whatever task you're doing after a distraction. So it's not only that you're just losing the time from your work from the distraction itself, but it's after the fact that you lose 25 more minutes of non-productivity because the meeting even happened in the first place. Just a full calendar in and of itself can give a sense of lack of fulfillment within your team, and in that way hurt their overall productivity. 56% of respondents that felt that their calendars were swamped with meetings after meetings felt they just never got anything done. And even if they were able to get work done, this overall sentiment made them less productive. See, nobody's hired to attend meetings. That's a silly idea. We're all hired to do a job based on our qualifications and skill sets to complete these tasks. But at the end of the day, frustration boils and burnout increases because we start to realize we're spending more time in meetings than we are getting the job done. Let's enter a speed round really quickly to show a couple more bullet points on how too many meetings is actually hurting your team. Check it out. So according to a Harvard Business Review survey, 71% of meetings have been found to be unproductive and inefficient, completely tearing away productivity. According to another survey, employees feel they spend too much time in meetings and therefore can't get their work done. Another point is that because meetings always feel like you have to always be on top of things, always online, the sense of burnout increases and therefore ruins productivity. Additionally, and I know we've all experienced this in one way or shape or form, the cognitive load and the reduced mobility of constantly having to be on video meetings quickly gets us to Zoom fatigue. Another point is that the average professional spends 4.6 hours a week in meetings. If we can find a way to free up that time, we'll be that much further ahead in the work that we have to do. Last but not least, meetings are just not inclusive. We have to think about people that are more like introverts. Being put on the spot is just not a healthy way to conduct communication, especially for people that are introverts. Whew. Okay, so we read off a couple points about too many meetings, but how do we spot when they're a waste of time? It's not just having different types of meetings, it's knowing when to understand when a meeting should just not even happen in the first place. This is how you begin to start to save time. So out of all the different types of meetings that you can have, whether they're status updates, one-on-ones, relationship type building meetings, or decision-making meetings, there's a couple of quick red flags that you can spot immediately from the start to know whether or not this meeting or potential meeting is going to be a waste of time. So point number one is when there's just no problem to solve at all. This issue commonly creeps up on weekly team meetings, types of meetings that have already been set out weeks ahead that are just recurring and nobody really thinks about it. So a good use of time inside of a meeting is, for example, when a marketing team is deciding the strategy behind a marketing campaign, what goes into it, all the moving parts, etc. But when it becomes problematic is when there's no problem at all. Or in other words, when that strategy is already solidified, the weekly meeting is no longer useful. It just becomes a distraction because now you're just going over things that were already agreed upon, and it might cause confusion, misinterpretations, etc. The second red flag to look out for or to think about is whether or not you could have just received the information asynchronously. For example, if you're a founder of a startup, you typically rely on some sort of updates from your teammates to know what's going on, to have proper information to start making decisions. But there should be a limit. Does your copywriter necessarily need to know about the ad spend the marketing team is placing behind a campaign? Maybe, but you don't need to block 30 to 60 minutes for them to have that information. In fact, it could have just been done asynchronously, where you could have dropped a voice message using a tool like Yak inside of a channel where if I were the copywriter or you were the copywriter, you'd be able to listen to that information on your own time when you're done focusing on the task that you finished, not being interrupted by all of a sudden meeting that you really only need to be there for 2 seconds worth of information. All right, so after a year and some change of almost strictly being remote, we've seen a huge shift of moving towards meeting after more meetings, and it's been completely counterproductive. We've given you a breakdown of how meetings can be counterproductive. We've even given you some red flags to watch out for to question whether or not meetings should actually be necessary in certain scenarios. We believe it's time to move away from the synchronous mindset and move towards a more fully asynchronous culture in the workplace. If you like this video and you want to see part 2 where we give a breakdown of some ground rules for meetings specifically, make sure to click subscribe and click the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video gets out. Lastly, as a heads up, we actually created a full blog post on too many meetings and how to manage this. So if you want to see that, click the first link down below in the description and you can visit the full blog where we go into much more detail than in this video. But other than that, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Activity, and we go into more detail. My cat.